good to see everybody in the Lord's house this morning. No better place to be on Sunday morning in His house, and no better place to get help in God's house. Good to be here. Hey, well, I want to thank you for all your prayers this week, all the prayers that everybody's prayed for me and my family. Hey, we're all right. We'll be all right. Just pray for my wife. Her nerves is pretty bad right now, so just pray for her. Pray for my girl if you would. But things are going to be all right. And the Bible said over in Romans, I ain't going to preach my Romans 8:28. He said, we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to His purpose. Hey, that may be hard to understand when things look black, but He works everything together. Good, bad, works it all together. It'll all work out neat. He's a good God, and you just pray for them. Just remember my wife, she just had so much, I think, this whole year. I got hurt back the first year. She dealt with me 2 or 3 months whining around. Then her daddy died. She's been trying to take care of her mom. And then this, she just had so much on her. I think it's just come to a head finally. So just pray for her if you would. She'll be all right. It's just going to have to give her a few weeks. I was sitting there thinking last night, I know I had a lot of friends, but I didn't know really how many I had until this week. My phone I've had calls from Washington State, Idaho, Florida, all the way to Louisiana, Georgia. People calling, want to do this, that, and the other. I mean, God's good. God's people's good. You can't beat them. They're the best people they are anywhere. I tell you what, God's been good to us this week. He'll continue to be good. I was telling my wife last night, this is just a little bump in the road, and there'll be more if the Lord don't come back. A lot of folks worse off than I am, and I ain't complaining. He's been good to me. Always has been, but just keep remembrance, keep prayers, and everything will be all right. He's a good God this morning. Got your Bible, turn to Job chapter number 36. You pray for us if you will this morning. My mind's been a little here or there and yonder the last day or two, so you just pray for us. Read a few verses here in the book of Job this morning. Maybe a little bit different type of message this morning, but I believe it will help us. If we look here in Job chapter 36, Job 36, Job chapter 36, verse 24 through 33. Job 36. We'll begin reading in verse 24. The Bible said, remember that thou hast magnified His works, which men behold. Every man may see it, man may behold it afar off. Behold, God is great, and we know Him not, neither can the number of His years be searched out. For He maketh small the drops of water, they pour down the rain according to the vapor thereof, which the clouds do drop and distill upon man abundantly. Also, can any understand the spreading of the clouds or the noise of His tabernacles? Behold, He spreadeth lightning upon it, and covereth the bottom of the sea. For by them judgeth He the people, He giveth meat in abundance. With clouds He covereth the light, and commandeth it not to shine, by the cloud that cometh betwixt. The noise therefore showeth concerning it, the cattle also concerning the vapor. Now, the book of Job, we're all real familiar with the book of Job, and the Bible talked about Job as being a righteous man, a man that feared God and eschewed evil. And you remember Job had some things happen in his life, some trials and afflictions. He lost pretty much everything he had in a matter of one day. He lost his wealth, lost his family, lost his children. And I've often wondered, Job couldn't have got through that if it wasn't for God. And you'll notice Job had 3 friends come by to talk to him. And they tried to tell Job why all these things happened in his life, but all they done was made things worse. They would have been better off, just to keep their mouth shut and not said anything. They came by, for 7 days, sat and done nothing to begin with. Then they started blaming all this on Job, saying, if you'd have done this different, if you'd have done that different, this wouldn't have happened. But there's a man here in chapter 36 by the name of Elihu who's speaking to Job now. And you notice down about verse number 24, he begins to talk about the mighty works of God, how great they are. Then he goes down in verse number 26, and he starts talking about how great God is. Now, when you get to talking about how great God is, you can't explain that. You'll never get done. He's infinite. There's more about God than we're ever going to learn. Then this man goes on down in verse 27, and he begins to tell how that God sends the rain. Then where I want you to notice this morning, from about verse 28 on down through the rest of the chapter, he begins to speak about clouds and talks, he begins in verse 28 and 29, talks about clouds, and talks about clouds again in verse number 32. And you know, clouds are something that we're all familiar with this morning. There's probably never a day that you can't go outside and you'll look up, you'll see a cloud somewhere most of the time. And you'll notice the clouds are mentioned throughout the Bible a whole lot. I'm going to give you a few places that clouds are mentioned in the Bible, and we'll get back here in just a minute. But you know, clouds was something that regulated Israel's movements. Exodus chapter 40, and clouds guided Israel in Exodus chapter 13. In Exodus chapter 14, clouds were something that defended Israel. And in Exodus chapter 40, a cloud covered the tabernacle. Then you get over in the New Testament, Luke chapter 9, you'll find clouds were used in Jesus' transfiguration. Acts chapter number 1, clouds were used at Jesus' ascension. Matthew 24, the Bible tells us that Jesus is going to return in the clouds one day. Remember back over it also in Genesis chapter number 9, God put His rainbow up in the clouds. Now this man mentioned about clouds here in Job chapter number 37, and you look that word cloud up. Most dictionaries will tell you that's a visible mass of vapor or smoke. You know, we see clouds daily, but I don't know if we realize a lot of time how God really uses them. You know, God uses the clouds to bring weather to us. All this rain we've been getting, He uses the clouds to bring that. Here in the next few months when it begins to get cold and snow, He's going to use the clouds to bring the snow and the sleet and different things such as that. You know, when there's a lot of clouds, you know it's not real easy to see a lot of times. You know, you can go out and you want to look up in the sky, go up to Mount Mitchell, and you might want to look off and see everywhere. Well, if you go up there and it's cloudy, you're not going to see real easy. I mean, it's going to be kind of a fog right in front of your face. The Bible said there in verse number 32, it said, with the clouds He covereth the light. And that's talking about at times God brings these clouds over the sunshine. And when He does that, it's not as easy to see things. It begins to get a little dark. It begins to get a little blurry. I got to think in the last few days, man, does your spiritual life ever get a little bit cloudy? Seems like something goes over that light and you can't see as good as you could. I mean, I believe it happens to all of us from time to time. Things get a little bit cloudy. May have been a little bit cloudy for a few of us, maybe a day or two this week. Things maybe got a little cloudy spiritually when things begin to happen. And I got to studying here a while back a little bit about clouds, and I found there was a type of cloud that I didn't realize is really a cloud. And you see it a whole lot up in here, and it's a thing called fog. Now, if you'll study and start reading about these clouds, it tells me that fog is a type of cloud that literally comes down at times and pretty much touches the earth. You know, you can walk through it sometimes and feel it when fog comes in. But you know, you ever stop and thought, man, I mean, there's times in our lives, and there's going to be days and times that it seems like that our life's just going to get plumb cloudy, get plumb foggy. Our vision's going to be distorted. And you know, there may be times that we just simply don't understand things. Bible said there also in verse 29, it says, which the clouds, or verse number 29, the Bible said, also can any understand the spreading of the clouds? That's talking about they're here 1 second and they're gone. They move different directions. They move different places. I got to reading on this last week and didn't understand why, but I believe it's kind of probably for us to maybe have a little help this morning. I mean, got to reading and studying a little bit about fog and these clouds, and Lord got to bringing some things to my mind. And I was thinking, probably been back about 10 years ago or something, when I was working another job, used to work out at Summit Building Supply, worked there for 20-some years, had a job where I was a buyer, bought stuff out there. 2 or 3 times a year, I'd have to go over to Tennessee, had to go over to Pigeon Forge one time, then Gatlinburg one time, to these buying shows and buy a lot of different things for the store out there. Me and my wife and kids had went over there one time and got to thinking while we was over, started back that night, man, it got real foggy on us. When I go to Tennessee, I always go over through Hot Springs, down 2570, down through Newport and Del Rio, down through there. And anybody knows anything about that road coming back in the nighttime along that river, that's somewhere you don't want to be when it gets foggy. Man, you can't see anything. If you ain't real familiar with that road, you're not going to know where you're going. We started back that night, and it wasn't all that bad to begin with. But man, we started up that river. It almost got impossible to see anything. Man, you couldn't see a tree when we was coming up through there. You couldn't tell if there was a car in front of you, behind you. Couldn't tell where the road was at or anything like that. You know, we started back up that night, and all of a sudden we hit that fog. And you know, I got to think in the last few days, man, there's so many people out there, so many people that's battling things right now. Man, there's so many people out there that's going through this, going through that. Sort of like this fog. You'll be going along all of a sudden and run into it. And here's one heartache, here's one sorrow. Just like that fog just popping up all of a sudden. And I'm talking about a spiritual state here. I'll get somewhere with this in just a minute. But you know, a lot of times we'll hit a spiritual state that's so dense, so foggy at times, you may feel like there's nobody even there. You may feel scared to death. But ain't you glad this morning, man, you ain't never alone, and we got somebody to go through that spiritual things with us. Hey, we got one in heaven, no matter how foggy it gets, He's always there. He's always beside us. The Bible said over there in Psalms 23 that His goodness and mercy follows us all the days of our lives. So when you get to this place in your life, that fog's going to hit, and it will. I want you to always look behind you. That goodness and mercy is right there. It's always following you. It's always there day and night, no matter where you go. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's goodness and mercy following us, even though we get in the fog from time to time. So I want to talk to you for a little while this morning, preach on the subject. Some things to remember when you're in the fog. I said this may be a little bit different type of message this morning, but I believe we need it for a little while today. I want you to pray for us for just a few minutes. Let me say, man, this morning we're all going to get to the place that we're going to go through some fog eventually. Now, it may be sickness that comes your way. It may be a wayward child. Man, it may be financial problems. It may be death. But these things happen, man. They're going to cause a spiritual fog in our lives. And you know, we're all going to get to that place sooner or later. Now, we're going to feel like we're lonely. We're going to feel like there's nobody there. There's going to be no vision in front of us. Let me say, man, it's easier to do things when the sun's shining. Hey, when the sun ain't shining, it's a whole lot harder to do things. Whole lot harder to see. Whole lot harder to get yourself motivated to work if the sun's not shining. Now, you hear a lot of folks say a lot of times, why is that crowd in the shape they're in? Or why is that man and woman in the shape they're in? You ever stop and thought they may be in a fog? They may not be able to see too far out in front of them right now. You know, you can't do what you should when you're in a fog. So I want to preach a little while this morning on some things to do when you find yourself in a fog. Number one, when you find yourself in a fog, I believe the number one thing you need to do is stay the course. Man, I remember that day when me and Hannah got in that fog coming back from Tennessee. Man, you couldn't hardly see anything. I mean, I was real familiar with that road. I couldn't see a landmark. Man, I didn't know where I was going. So, man, we had to make a decision whether to go on or stop. I mean, if we stopped, the fog may have never left. And we said a minute ago, you know, fog's a cloud that touches down to the earth. The Bible said in verse 29 there, also can any understand the spreading of the clouds? We was talking about Job there a minute ago.
I said, when you get in a fog, stay the course. Stay the direction you're going before you got in it. And I'll show you why in just a minute. Here's Job, his friends has come by. I mean, Job's friends said the clouds come out of nowhere. Hey, Job had a fog hit him out of nowhere. Everything was going good. He was the wealthiest man in that part of the world, had everything he needed. But all of a sudden, a fog come in. Sorrow hit Job. Job's wife even looked at him and said, Job, why don't you curse God and die? You know, Job said you talk like a foolish woman. You know what Job was telling his wife? Pretty much, I've made my mind up no matter what comes, no matter what goes, no matter how much sorrow. Job said, I may be in a fog, but I'm going to keep the course God put me on. Job said, looked at his wife and said, I'm not going a different direction. You know the greatest thing you'll do when you get in a fog or you can't see your way or you don't know what's ahead? Just stay on the course where God put you. Hey man, that night we was coming back from Tennessee over there. I mean, there were several times, man, we got in the fog, man, and we thought about just pulling over and parking. But you know, that wouldn't got us any closer to home. I mean, that fog may have set in, might have sat there and stayed there all night, may have stayed a day or two. You know the last thing you need to do if you ever get in the fog spiritually is pull over and quit and just sit down. Hey man, you can't pull over and quit when you get a spiritual fog. You know, a lot of folks get a spiritual fog, they throw their hands up and say, I'm quit, I'm just going to park. But you know the best thing you can do when you get in that spiritual fog is just stay on the course that God's put you on. You know why? It's a good course. It's a good path because it leads home. Hey man, we could have pulled a map out that night. That me and Hannah and the kids was coming back from Tennessee. We could have pulled a map out and tried to find a different direction. But you know, you get to thinking about that, man, we could have tried to find a new road that led home. And you know, a lot of people does that a lot of times when they get in a spiritual fog. They'll try to find another road. They'll try to go another path and say, well, maybe we can get out of this fog. Let me say, as long as you're breathing, there's going to be a spiritual fog no matter which direction you go. Bible said in Job 14:1, man that is born of woman is a few days and full of trouble. Hey, you might take another road, but there's going to be fog there also. You know the best road to take is the course that God's put you on. And let me say, if you're saved this morning, man, that road's going to lead all the way home one day. You know, Paul said over in 2 Timothy 4:7, I fought a good fight, I finished my course, and I've kept the faith. Man, could you imagine how many days spiritual fog maybe that Paul went through, those days he was beat, the days he was mocked? Man, may have been days, man, that Paul may have said, I'm not sure which way I'm going. But you know what old Paul always done? He stayed on the course and the road that God put him on. Philippians 3 and verse 13 and 14, the Bible said, Brethren, I count not myself to be of apprehended. But this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forth unto those things which are before. I press toward the mark for the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. Hey, no matter the trial, we just need to stay on course. It leads home. Hey, it ain't going to always be like this. There's going to be better days ahead. Hey, God's a good God. He's got a good course. He's got a song. He's always right there with us. Hey, what do you do when you find yourself in a spiritual fog? Stay the course. Number 2, when you find yourself in a fog, I believe we need to remember what God supplied us with to navigate this journey. You ever stop and thought a lot of times we take for granted what God's given us? Hey, we need to appreciate and remember what God supplied us with to navigate this journey. Hey, that night we was coming back from Tennessee. You know, I didn't ever realize until how much that night that I really appreciated the headlights on that car. Drove a million times, been in fog, but never like that. Didn't realize till that night how much I appreciated those lights. You know, we'd been driving along, it's pitch black dark, and hit that fog. You know, a lot of times we just don't really appreciate what we got until we need it. I mean, you think about that. Let it sink in. You know, it's one thing to be driving in the dark. But when you hit that dense fog, you know you appreciate the lights that vehicle has been equipped with a whole lot more. Hey, you know you get out there driving in this fog. Hey, there's two different settings on most cars. There's high beam and low beam lights. And man, you don't know how much you appreciate them low beam lights till you get in that fog. Man, I was thinking there too. I got to thinking when they built that van I'm driving, they equipped that van with some equipment that they knowed we was going to have under different circumstances. And somebody, when they was designing that vehicle, realized there's going to be a time that old Rick may hit some fog. And he's going to need some lights to help him get through that darkness and get through that fog. You know, we just need to stop and think, man, there's some things that we don't appreciate enough. Hey, they made that vehicle to where those low beam headlights would hit right out in front of that car. Right out where we needed to be. Hey, I didn't need to see 50 miles down the road that night. I just needed to see right in front of me where I was going, what direction I was going. And you know, I'm afraid we got a lot of people that's looking too far out in the distance a lot of times. They're looking down the road a week ahead of time, looking 10 years down the road. We ain't got no promise tomorrow. Hey, we need to realize what God's given us right now and use what He's given us right now. We need to look straight ahead. Man, we need to thank God for the light that God's equipped us with for today. You say, what kind of light have we got? Man, you need to pick this old Bible up right now and look at it. Man, it's a light. Hey, man, you may be in a spiritual fog right now, but I'm glad I can pick it up and it'll illuminate some things. Man, it'll put some light where that fog's at. Man, it'll put some light out in front of me where I can see where I'm going. Man, we've got something the world don't got. We've got a powerful book. Man, this Word gives light in the darkest hours. Hey, it gives hope when they don't look like there's any hope. Hey, man, you lay your head down and out things get to bothering you. Pick this old book up. It'll illuminate some things. Right. It'll show you where your hope lies at. It'll tell you about Jesus, tell you about heaven. So, man, we need to stay the course when we get in the fog. And we need to use the things that the Lord's given us to navigate this journey like this Bible. Hey, number 3, when you find yourself in a fog, there's something else we need to use. Hey, we need to use each other. Hey, that night when me and Hannah and the kids was coming back from Tennessee, hey, I used Hannah coming back that night a whole lot. Now, I'll tell you what I mean in just a minute. Let me say, when you get in a fog, man, you need to use your brothers and sisters in Christ at time to lean on. Hey, when we was coming back that night from Tennessee, I didn't know, I didn't really know which way we was going that night. Didn't know if there was anything in front of me or behind me or anything else like that. So I looked over at Hannah and said, man, you're going to have to help me. You're going to have to be 2 sets of eyes. You're going to have to watch behind, watch on the side and help me. Let me know if you see anything. Hey, she didn't have any control of the steering wheel, didn't have any control of the brakes, didn't have any control of the gas pedal or the lights or anything. But man, she was another set of eyes to watch. You know, when we get in a spiritual fog, man, we need to watch out for each other. Man, there's times we just simply need to lean on each other. That's what we do as a family, as brothers and sisters in Christ. Hey, we were to be there to cry together, laugh together, hug one another. And man, I thank God I've had that this week. But I got to thinking, when you get in this spiritual fog, man, we need to lean on each other. Man, there's folks out there this morning that need somebody to lean on. We may not can control their situation. But man, we might can lean on them a little bit and make their situation a little more tolerable. Make it a little more easy to get through. Man, I was thinking there last night, and I was thinking about this. I don't know, it's been 5 or 6 years back. There's one time, me and Hannah and the kids had been over to Asheville to her mom and dad's, and it was in the middle of the winter. Man, it got to snowing when we was over there. I mean, it got to snowing like crazy. Man, I think we'd been at her mom and daddy's house maybe about an hour, and next thing you know, there's 5 or 6 inches about it already on the ground. We started back toward Burnsville, and it took us almost 3.5 to 4 hours to get back to Burnsville from Nashville. So much ice and snow on the road. I got to thinking, we was coming back that night. Hannah hung her head out the window. Helped me all the way to the house to just be able to see. Hey, it makes a difference sometimes when you got 2 sets of eyes watching. Man, when you get in the fog, man, we need to lean on each other. Man, you stop and think about what a help we've got on this journey. Man, we're headed home and we're not alone. We got a great big God. Right. Man, we got a God that loves us, knows all, sees all. He knows when, He knows that fog was going to hit before it ever did. And He knows how we is going to react before that fog ever hit. But ain't you glad we got a friend in Him? The Bible said He's the comforter, man. He's the rock. He's our fortress. He's our high tower. Man, when you hit that spiritual fog, hey, don't ever get too big a man to lean on somebody. There's times you're going to have somebody to talk to. There's times you need somebody every once in a while, maybe just stick that hand out, shake your hand, say everything's going to be all right. Hey, it makes it a little more tolerable to get through. Hey, when you find yourself in a fog, let me give you about 2 more things and I'll be done. When you find yourself in a spiritual fog, I believe you just need to simply slow down. Hey, you need to find a place that you're comfortable. You know, when we hit that fog over there that night, I've been running pretty good up the river. Hey, if there'd been any law around, they'd probably been giving me a reward on the side of the road right there for how good I was running. But you know, I was coming up through there pretty good, and all of a sudden, all I seen was black and fog. And you know, when it gets like that, I mean, I've been driving pretty good and hit that fog, and I just had to slow down to a crawl because I wasn't comfortable. Man, I slowed down to about 15 miles an hour probably, and all of a sudden, when I slowed down, coming up that river, man, I seen headlights coming all of a sudden one time. One come by me about 65 miles an hour. And man, those thoughts went through my mind. That fella's got to be an idiot. He's going to get killed. Then I got to thinking about that a little bit more as I was riding up the road there, and I got to thinking, well, maybe that truck was probably equipped with fog lights. It made him to the place where he could move a little bit faster than I was. But man, I slowed down to a crawl. I slowed down to the place that I felt comfortable. Now, when you get in a spiritual fog, you get in that spiritual valley where the trials comes. We need to remember everybody don't move at the same pace. And a lot of times we think when this boat hits this, we'll look at them and say, what's wrong with them? They need to get over it. They need to be moving a little bit faster. And a lot of times we're bad to push people. A lot of times we're bad to say, well, you need to get going. Man, you need to realize some folks don't get over things as quick as others do. Man, there's times when these folks get in these spiritual fogs, we need to realize they may be moving at the only pace they can move at that time. And what we need to do then is pray for them. What we need to do then is pull up to them and just love on them. Man, I've been through some things in my life and know how certain things are, but there's some things I've never been through. And let me say, you can't understand something until you've been through it. I've never lost a mom or dad. I don't understand that. I don't know how it feels. I know that it'll come sooner or later one day. But I can walk up to somebody and try to comfort them until I don't really understand it. That comes with experience when it happens. All I can do is take this Bible and try to comfort you a little bit with the words. But I still don't know where you're at. Now there's some things I've been through that I can help you with that I've been through. And that's the reason when somebody's experienced something, they might be able to help somebody else with that. But a lot of times we'll look at folks and we'll try to push them and say, man, they just need to get over this. But you know, a lot of folks just need to slow down and get at a pace that they're comfortable with, and I believe God will help them. You know, you'll see a lot of folks, sometimes they may have a death in the family. And they begin to grieve and they begin to mourn. A lot of folks say, well, if you grieve and mourn, that'll make you weak. No. Man, if you love somebody, you're going to grieve and you're going to mourn. That's part of it. But I've heard some folks say sometimes, well, that'll just last a week or two. It does sometimes and sometimes it don't. Hey man, sometimes that lasts for months and years, and sometimes that grieving never stops. Some folks goes to the grave because they've grieved themselves to death over a loved one. Because they loved them so much. But we ought to thank God this morning if you get that spiritual fog of grieving. Hey, let me say, there's grace and there's mercy. Hey man, God's got a storehouse that's full of grace and mercy. He's got a storehouse that's full of love. Man, there's enough grace and mercy to get us through anything that ever comes our way. So man, we just need to slow down at times when that fog sets in. Let me give you the last thing here and I'll be done. If you find yourself in a fog, hey, you need to set your sights on the unmovable. Hey, that night we was driving back to Tennessee and got in that fog driving. You know, I couldn't see anything or nothing that was familiar because the fog was so bad. But I had my eyes on one thing that was unmovable when we come back, that white line on the edge of the right side of the road. Hey, it didn't matter if the scenery changed. It didn't matter how much that road changed. That white line didn't change, just stayed the same all the way home. Man, I've been thinking the last day or two, man, we get that spiritual fog. We need to keep our sights on the thing that is unmovable. And let me say, His name's Jesus Christ. Hey, He's not going to change all the way home. He never has. Hey, that white line that night, if it hadn't been for it, I may not have got home. Hey, that thing may have went different directions, but long as I could see it and follow it, it got me home. It was unmovable. But man, we've got one sitting on the right hand of God this morning. The Bible tells Jesus Christ the same yesterday, today, and forever. He's non-changing. So man, when that spiritual fog sets in, we need to get our eyes on Him. I'm afraid a lot of times we just simply get our eyes off Jesus and that fog sets in. Let me say, the longer we live, the more you breathe, the more days it goes by. There's going to be some days it's going to get awful foggy. There's going to be some days we don't understand. There's going to be some things happen. We're just going to walk off scratching our head. Why did this happen? Why did that happen? But you know, that white line will get you home. Hey, we stay that course, it leads home. It's a good path. We use the things He's given us to navigate like this Bible. It'll put light on it. We just need to simply slow down sometimes and don't get so busy. Hey, and just follow Him. He's unmovable. He's a good God this morning. Always right on time, never been a day late. Never been a dollar short in anything He's ever done. He's still God. Still on the throne. Still alive and waiting. Still loves us this morning. Still protecting us. Ain't you glad He knows what's going to happen tomorrow? Hey, me and you would be sitting here biting our fingernails off if we knowed everything that was going to happen this week. He knows everything that's going to happen, but He's not worried about it. He's in control of it. He's still God. Hey, I believe the Lord just come around this morning and had an old-fashioned altar of prayer. Everybody will, everybody can. Well, let's just come around and pray for each other this morning. Pray for the church. God's going to take